let's talk about one of my favorite subjects today. Oh, jerks at school, right? So I'm gonna give you some real tips on how to handle jerks at school in a way that's clever, puts it back on to them, and gives you the upper hand. Because I understand that one of the hardest things about dealing with jerks at school is you don't wanna become a jerk and you don't wanna be embarrassed. So let me show you how to avoid both of those. I don't know about you, but I've dealt with my fair share of jerks at school. And one of the best life tips my dad ever gave me is he said, one day he sat me down and he was like, Abby, listen, there's gonna be jerks at church, there's gonna be jerks at school, there's gonna be jerks at work, there are gonna be jerks wherever you go, right? So you better learn how to deal with jerks. And I remember that was just like mind-blowing for me because it was like on a Sunday and I remember this girl at church was so mean to me and I was like, Dad, we are at church. We're trying to learn how to be Christians and this girl was mean to me, right? And that's when he gave me that awesome advice and that's the advice I have for you. But let me give you a couple practical tips of how I learned to do that. And the first is to limit your exposure to the jerk. I think this one's really obvious. I won't spend a ton of time talking about this, but why are we hanging out with these people? And if this jerk is part of your friend circle, let's rethink that. My second tip is probably my best tip for how to handle this with grace and tact, and that is to put it back on them. I don't know if you can read that, but I have humor, I have questionings, and then I have the exposed. So let me explain those. When I was dealing with jerks in my life, and as I continue to deal with jerks in my life, I have found a lot of success with using humor. So just kind of having a laugh in your voice and being like, oh, ouch, I thought we were friends, right? It's got enough truth to it of hey, listen, that hurt. But you're doing it in a way that they're not gonna get crushed, especially if other people are around you, but they're gonna get the message, especially if they're socially adept, right? Now, if they're not, and this is kind of more, we know those people where meanness is kind of part of their personality, use my second tactic. And this is one of my favorites. I got it from my sister. She said that she would question and expose the meanness of the person that's being a jerk. And this is how it would go. So let's pretend somebody just said the most, for me, it was always redhead jokes, right? And some of them were awful, right? People would say the most awful redhead joke or the most awful sexist joke. I feel like women get that sometimes. And, just something that's just so mean. And you can even say this in defense of other people when they've said, oh, blah, 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 so-and-so does this. You turn to that person and you look at them with genuine interest and you go, hey, so explain that joke to me. Tell me, why was that funny? And here's why this is powerful, because it doesn't seem like you're coming across malicious, but as they think through it and they go, oh, well, it's funny because redheads have no soul and you guys are jerks and just soulless, right? They're gonna be caught on them, right? It gives them a minute of pause and then they actually have to voice the meanness. A lot of times jerks will get away with being a jerk because they're not actually voicing or naming the meanness or the sting of the joke, right? And so when you can actually put it back on them and you question and you're exposing them in a way that is kind of subtle, they know and you know, and oftentimes all the people around know you weren't putting up with that. It's a good way of putting your foot down without being I'm putting my foot down and that was so mean, which guess what? I shouldn't have done that in such a weird voice. That is awesome. You should do that if you need to. But if you were like me and felt like you just need I don't know, to be a little bit braver to expose somebody like that, try this tip of questioning and just asking, being hey, so tell me why that was funny. I don't get that joke. Why would women need to stay in the kitchen, right? Would you explain that to me? Because obviously I'm missing something here, right? It makes them voice their meanness. It makes them voice the sting of what they implied. And oftentimes they get embarrassed and they'll stop. And it's a great way to expose them for what they were actually doing without having to bring down the hammer. My last tip is to, well, actually it's not my last tip. I have one more, sorry. Is to call it out. I hope you know, never be afraid. Never, ever, 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 ever in a million years to stand up for yourself and especially stand up for others. my first two tips really work well when you're defending you, right? Because sometimes it can be really hard to defend yourself, but when you're defending other people from a jerk, just go straight to step 3. Just go straight to calling it out. And my last tip for you, and for reals the last one, is to get help if you need it. I had a young lady message me and she was DMing me and she's like, listen, I've had a fight with my friends, and she was explaining to me some of the things that this fight had escalated to. She's like, they've gotten into a group chat and they'll say all these mean things about me and they keep adding me into this chat so I'll see them. And then when I like invite myself from the group, they'll add me back in, right? Or they've created a fake social media account, like malicious things. So guys, if I think it's one thing that we've met jerks, right, who just say what's on their mind or just are insensitive about their jokes or what they're saying. And then there's bullying, right? And then there is malicious. This is affecting my self-esteem. This affects my ability to work, my ability to be at school, my ability to feel like I fit in and make friends. That's when you need to get help. And I want you to know that it's never too early to get help. It's never too late to get help. Get help, get help, get help. Get help from a parent, get help from a teacher, get help from a trusted adult. But just never be afraid to get help, because sometimes let me clarify that, always, it's a huge favor to this person that's being a jerk to let them know that they are being a jerk, right? The greatest tragedy would be if we let them go on living thinking that was okay to treat human beings the way that they've treated you or other people. So let's help them, and sometimes we need help to do that. So never be afraid to get help. Okay, babe, there you have it. Those are my tips of how to deal with a jerk at school. Now, I know that there's 1,000,001 situations that rise up. So if you want to DM me or on Instagram, leave a comment down below and subscribe to my channel, because I offer tips all the time of how to deal with negative people, how to make new friends, situations that you're probably going through as a teenager and young adult. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of those tips, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video. Abbi J out.